Most of us probably worry about failure, but far fewer of us actually worry about success. But if you want to take your leadership to the next level, you might consider making success and how you got there one of your top concerns. Not just the goal to be reached at all costs. Why? Because when we experience success, it supports making the same type of decisions in the future, whether or not they cause the success or not. And who's to say you and the team really caused the success and it wasn't just chance or luck? That's what we'll talk about in this video. How do we pursue success but remain critical of our approach? Hi, I'm Mike Targus, retired Marine, founder of Center Desk Leadership Coaching. I did 21 years in the Marine Corps and transitioned in 2013 into project management, engineering, and sales. I've been leading teams on that side ever since. So I've seen leadership from both angles, military and civilian. And I've seen what transfers from the Marines into teams like the one you're in, what works and what doesn't. And that's what this channel is about. Leading the team you have right now, the one that comes to work every day for you right now, not the one you wish you had or the one you think you're going to have in the future. Let's start out by going through the leadership system that we're developing. As you can see, we've got leadership broken down into three main areas or three pillars. First one being our chaotic environment. Second, leading amidst uncertainty, which we always do. That's the default state. And building trust. These are the three areas of emphasis, or like I said, the three pillars of leadership development. In this video, we'll focus on our chaotic environment, specifically the control and chance part. As you can see, control and chance is then broken down into finite visibility, which we talked about 2 videos ago. The fact that luck and responsibility coexist, that's this video. And both the need for and the cost of speed, everything has a trade-off. And speed, or going faster, is no exception. And like many complex topics, things are interrelated. For example, whether you caused success or not is related to understanding and false clarity, as well as highlighting the need for a strong sense of humility, which we'll talk about in this video today. Experienced veteran leaders do a few things much better than other leaders, and one of them is the way you handle luck. You have to develop a sense for knowing about luck and appreciating it without hiding behind it, which is to say, you're not waiting for things to succeed or waiting for things, conversely, to fail. What's the definition of luck? Luck is when you experience success, or it could be failure in the case of bad luck, but it's through chance, not necessarily through your own actions. So the first realization that you need to make is that your outcomes are produced by more than just your own effort and judgment. You also have timing, context, things out of your control, and unseen variables, things that just come into your world without you knowing about it. And being aware of this keeps confidence from taking over and shutting out external influences or observations that you need to make sure that you're aware of what things might need to be changed going forward. And this awareness keeps arrogance from taking a hold. It keeps you curious, keeps you learning. So recognizing chance, it doesn't reduce your responsibility. It actually enhances the need, or helps us realize the need for more humility, the need to keep our eyes and ears open. And leaders who appreciate luck are more adaptive. They can react to situations a lot better because you're not focused on defending your ideas or your plan. You realize you don't know everything, and you realize that you have to adjust to the environment around you. And most of us, we probably all have heard the expression, don't make the same mistake twice, right? But consider the situations where you may not know that a mistake was conducted in the first place. That's kind of what we're talking about. So the lesson here is most leadership mistakes don't originate from your incompetence. They begin with misattribution, or attributing success or failure to the wrong things. When outcomes are favorable, naturally, we're inclined to think it's something that we did right. It's our high level of skill, or our keen insights, or just a resolve to push through all the obstacles to get the job done. And you might think this is vanity, but it's more than that. It's something that we're wired to do. We're wired to have what's called a self-serving bias. And what this is essentially attributing success to internal qualities and failure to those external. When things go right, I made a good decision. When things don't go well, the environment somehow conspired against me. This psychology originated in the 50s by Fritz Heider in what he called attribution theory, and essentially breaks down into success is internal attribution and failure is external attribution. And this isn't simply arrogance. More so, this is us maintaining our self-image without even realizing it. We have a need to maintain a positive, consistent self-image of ourselves. And when something threatens that, we look for reasons why that might have happened, largely external. But for you as a leader, bias, although they're normal, we all have them, they're particularly dangerous if you're not willing to recognize them or look for them. Success is intoxicating. It feels like validation, like we're doing something right. And that's not entirely wrong to feel that way. We have to have some of that. Get the promotion. Your project saves a lot of money. You have a really profitable experience. You have a huge quarter. This is when these false assurances or these false reinforcements start to creep in, and you don't even realize that it's happening. But you can, if you keep your eyes open, you can watch for them. Because what's going on, maybe it might be in your subconscious even, is what I'm doing is working. And it's going to steer you towards doing more of that in the future. And part of that is we're going to overlook the poor decision-making habits or the poor decision-making practices or maybe even unethical practices in our pursuit of continuing this success. And one thing you can do is you can pay attention to how quickly do you tell yourself that you understand a situation. When somebody is explaining something to you or to a group, pay attention to how quickly you jump to the conclusion or to the answer in your own mind. What you want to do is you want to stay curious and objective. You want to hear all possible facts to come in, even if it's something, even the most basic thing that you've seen a million times. Because over time, what happens is these beliefs become certainty in your mind. And when you're certain or overly certain on things, you're less curious, you're less observant of what the circumstances are surrounding situations. Again, you're going to jump to that conclusion. I've seen this before. You start to think less critically about the situation itself. It may save time, and often you do have to do that. And that's where experience becomes valuable, as long as you realize that experience isn't always the best teacher. You got to try to remain objective. And oh, by the way, all these situations that in your own mind you think have built up to make you so certain about, there's probably some failures in there too that you're not acknowledging. You're overlooking those. And when you overlook failure, you really overlook a lot of valuable learning opportunities. And this is where luck starts to show its impact on what we do. Not when you fail, but actually when you succeed. That's why I said at the beginning of the video, most people worry about failure, but you should really try to make success one of your top concerns. And this doesn't mean that you're going to minimize your impact. You're the leader, you should have a huge impact. What it means is you're going to remain objective about how things went down, and you're not going to just assume that every success, or even any success, is a proof of your own individual competence. You contributed, you made assumptions. You don't always know if you made the right assumptions along the way. You just know that that end result either worked out or it didn't. And you might have had very favorable conditions the whole way. So in a sense, success might have been inevitable. Are you appreciating it that way? You have to always realize that timing and context always play a role. You could do the same exact action for time, but it's important to realize that when you do that, the situation that you're operating in or executing in is not going to be the same. So it might not always work out. The markets change. The people on your team have things that happen to them in their personal life. They leave or they do things at work that you're not expecting. Your competition may be going through a lull. That's why things are working out. One way to think of this is conditions favor a particular approach, and you don't always see how everything is falling into place along the way. So it's not that you have no control. Skill does matter. Timing, effort, they do matter. Point here is none of this guarantees a result. One of the examples, as we used to talk about in the Marine Corps, a little bit different context, was like wrestlers. So to assume that you the end result before you even get into it would be the same thing as saying if you're a wrestler, you're going to plan out your first 5, 10, or 15 moves against your opponent. And you're just going to do those without regard to what your opponent is doing back to you, which of course would never work. And a wrestler is making constant adjustments, no matter how good they are. They're making constant they do have a plan, but they're making constant adjustments based on their opponent. So if you can get yourself to acknowledge the role of luck, you're going to learn a lot more along the way. You're going to be more observant to the things that go into executing the plan or doing the plan itself, but also you'll be able to tie the results back to things that you did do along the way and the circumstances surrounding them. You'll analyze your assumptions along the way. You'll take a look at which assumptions that you need to carry forward and continue with, and which just did not work out, and for what reason. Another way of looking at it is always question your favorable outcomes. You don't have to be the leader that is just never satisfied. That's not what we're talking about. And it's a whole other aspect of leadership. But you want to be the type of leader that is a little hesitant to celebrate. But you'd rather take a look at ensuring you understand why success came about in the first place. You want to be somebody that takes a look back at the risks that you took, and did you take those intentionally? Did you plan to do that? Did you assess the probability of the outcome? How favorable, how likely was it that you're going to achieve a favorable result in taking that risk? You can only take so much risk on behalf of the other leaders or the leader of your organization. We'll do more on that later. But you want to be aware of the risks that you are assuming along the way, or the ones that are given to you to manage. Part of this mindset is you're open to the fact that the situation could continue to be favorable or it could change. You may make some wrong moves that don't work out, but you may make some wrong moves that in the situation, the environment is more forgiving. You don't notice it. All of these kind of mindsets or perspectives, they're going to protect you from becoming too arrogant. And arrogance is one of the most corrosive attributes that a leader can be infected by. And we don't all of a sudden become arrogant. It happens to us over time. A good way to describe arrogance is reduced listening. Think about that one. Another one is impatience with disagreement or dissent. You have a reliance on your reputation instead of the things that are actually going on around you, or performance. And in all these situations, kind of in the back of our mind is, I've seen this before. I know what's going to happen. And when you do that, your eyes, figuratively are closed to the situations that are going on. And this gets harder, and I talked about this in another video, but the more senior you get, the more filtered the information is that comes into you. So you got to actually, the more senior you get, you have to work harder to get people to bring you, maybe just think of it as the bad news, because nobody wants to disappoint the boss. If that's you as you move through the ranks, just realize that the information you're getting to make the decisions is going to be more and more sanitized. And part of working hard at preventing this from happening is exhibiting a strong sense of humility, being able to handle the bad news when it's brought to you, how you react to it. Those are all very important signals that you're going to show the people in your team. And we don't want to think of humility as modesty or just sloughing off compliments, recognition, all that stuff. Humility is maintaining a strong sense of realism about the situation. It's recognizing how complex the environment of leadership actually is. Anything with people is infinitely complex. Be confident, but at least realize how complex things become when people are involved. The linkages between people, the linkages between things and markets and transportation and communication, they're not always clean linkages as well. We don't always fully understand them. But humility allows us to be open to recognizing these changes, seeing these imperfections. It allows us to adapt to the circumstances around us. With a strong sense of humility, you're not going to extrapolate too much from success or a win. You want to watch for this with yourself for sure, but the other leaders in your organization is appreciating luck that doesn't decrease accountability. It's not an excuse for lack of effort, poor performance, none of that. What you want it to be is a way for you and the team to evaluate outcomes, decisions along the way based on their merit, not simply whether or not you achieve the result. And if you can look at it in that way, that's going to protect you from punishing or overreacting to a bad result and perceived performance along the way. And similarly, you're going to be less likely to reward what was really poor performance or poor decision making that ended up with a positive result, because you're going to understand what went into it. And the team wants this. They want to be in a team where there's predictable learning opportunities, predictable rewards, or even punishments when things go well or they don't. And another thing to consider is when you overcredit yourself for success, when you don't have success, you're going to take that harder. And you have the real potential to overcorrect or overcompensate in the way that you treat the team afterward. High confidence one day, the next day something happens, you're skeptical about everything, you're in everybody's business. This is also where you start to see changing standards. People over here that have had recent success, they get treated differently than the people over here. Or once you have two standards in your team, you're going downhill fast. Because people will, when they pick up on that, it's not about judging objectively the planning, the execution, and the result. It's more of a personal observation. They're going to take it personally if you don't handle those standards correctly. Now, contrast that with leaders, and you appreciate luck, that the results that we achieved, we're glad for a positive result, but it's not necessarily always everything we did to cause that. You're going to be steadier. You're going to be more gradual in the changes that you make with the team. You're going to be less flustered, less thrown off course because you're expecting some bumps in the road. You're going to focus on inputs, process, and understanding the situation. And if you can do that, no matter what's going on around you, that's really going to boost up people's confidence in your ability as their leader. There's also a forward-looking or a future benefit of handling luck this way. You're going to be better prepared for adversity when you realize there is such a thing as good luck or bad luck. Because when situations deteriorate, in all situations in some way, at some point, do this, you're going to be less surprised or thrown off track. In other words, you're going to adapt faster because you never believed the environment was ideal or set or predetermined in the first place. You think about it, if you don't assume that things are predetermined, you're probably going to be the type of person that listens more attentively along the way as well. Contrasted with if you're convinced that you got the right plan from the outset, why listen? Why bother? Move on to something else. Agency exists within constraint. We control decisions, not the conditions in which we make them. You're responsible for judgment, effort, character, but you can't force outcomes to occur. So the wisdom here, or the judgment, the balance that we all need to make as leaders, is not to deny that chance exists, but to strike a balance between how much control I have over the outcome and how much I do not. And to do this without just foregoing all of our responsibility for the result in the first place. Because you are going to be responsible for the results. You just have to figure out how to maintain your resilient, steadfast approach to achieving those results while things are going to hell all around you. So you want to treat luck asymmetrically. On one hand, when you experience it, you want to maybe downplay it a little bit. You want to look at it, be grateful, but downplay it. But when you have bad luck, you want to dive in and take a look at what's going on and what is causing this to happen. And over time, if you take this approach, you're going to feel yourself becoming more steady and you're going to be less sensitive to conditions and these small changes in the environment around you. Along the way, you're going to experience positive and negative on the way to your end goal. Your confidence will be strong. It won't be brittle. It'll bend, but it won't break. And probably the most important thing out of all this is the people that you're leading, when they see you like this, they're going to be more open. They're going to be more willing to contribute in ways that you want in the first place. They're going to tell you things that you wouldn't otherwise know. They're going to feel safe with you as the leader. They know you're not going to snap at the first sign of trouble. So luck should not weaken your leadership. However, mishandling luck certainly will. Now here's your 5-point execution plan, how to make this a reality for you and your people. Number 1, you want to separate outcomes from the decisions that go into achieving them. Be a systems thinker. Think about how we're coming to these conclusions, how we're deciding on what to do, not just being solely focused on what happens from the decision. Number 2, take a look at success carefully. Why did things work out? What were the assumptions that you made? Don't let assumptions just come and go without examining whether or not they were correct or not. Number 3, encourage honesty, transparency, dissent even. Make sure people are comfortable professionally and respectfully disagreeing with you and other members of the group for the purposes of making the group better. Number 4 is treat luck asymmetrically. So when things go poorly, that's really your opportunity to dive in and take a look at how the negative result occurred. And when things go well, you want to downplay it a little bit. And the 5th one is you want to focus on the process. So you want to build the team that operates well. You want people to be able to look introspectively on how they assess and manage risk. And you want to be able to do it consistently. Something I always like to say is, what can you do well every day? That's how you should calibrate goals and improvements for your team. What can you do well every day? So as your team set up to operate consistently in the right ways. That's it. When you're leading people, you don't get ideal textbook circumstances. You get real situations. Just when everything is going right, something you could have never seen happening comes and tries to destroy your plan. Every day brings a new adventure. You could have a stretch of good luck. You could have the opposite, a stretch of bad luck. And on those days when nothing seems to be going right, just remember, it's not all about you. It's not all about the people in your team. Sometimes there are external forces, things that come in that you could have never seen coming, that cause things to happen. So stay steady and lead them through it. It's all about these real situations and your ability to get the people on your team through it. It's not about some dream team that you might try to assemble here in the not too distant future. Leadership is not about having a dream team with no issues for you to have to deal with. Leadership is about leading the team you have right now. And that's what we focus on in this channel. If this made you think a little bit differently about how you're leading your team, consider liking and subscribing, follow along. And until next time, don't fear success, but be a little skeptical. Make sure you dedicate effort to finding out why things worked out in the first place. Thanks.